Hi, I'm Jeremy Crosby.
And I'm Nick Boucher. We're your hosts for the program that's all about your city, Talking Fitchburg.
Every weekday, we pull together the news, events, and information you need to stay on top of what's happening in the city of Fitchburg.
Find Talking Fitchburg on cable TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and our live stream on the web. Plus, you can find all our headlines and stories on Facebook, YouTube, and our video on demand service. This is your city.
Keep up with Talking Fitchburg and the issues affecting you and your neighbors.
Want to know what's happening in your city? Get Notify Me messages from the City of Fitchburg. Visit fitchburgwi.gov on your computer or mobile device and select the big Notify Me button on the left. Enter your email and/or phone number, whichever is best for you to get notifications. Scroll down the list and select all the topics you're interested in to receive email or text messages about. You'll be notified every time one of your topics is updated. Sign up for Notify Me, one more way to keep up with your Fitchburg government.
Good evening. I am Chris Pagaro. I'm going to calling to order the Community Equity Advisory Committee meeting for December 15th, 2025 at 5:17 p.m. And our first agenda item, number one, actually we just did that. Agenda item number two is the approval of the minutes from the November 20th, 2025 meeting. We have quorum, so we can go ahead and move forward with approval of those minutes. Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Congratulations.
Congratulations as well, all of us. Thank you. So if there's no discussion, then we'll take an all in favor. Say aye.
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 Any opposed? If not, that passes, and our agenda for that meeting has passed. For agenda item number three, public appearances, and for non-agenda items, this actually we do have a public appearance for an agenda item, and I was going to call Steve Arnold up for public comment to the table.
Okay, so you're on the 4A?
We are on 4A. That's comment. No.
Okay.
And we can do 5 minutes since you're the only comment or public comment.
Well, thank you, Chris, for recognizing me. I'm Steve Arnold. I live at 2530 Targhee Street, and today I'm representing Bike Fitchburg, our local bicycle advocacy group, and the Wisconsin Bike Fed, our statewide advocacy group. I'm on the board of both bodies, and you have in your packet my comments, some of them, a round of comments on the bicycle and pedestrian plan. Our argument is that this was underfunded. The consulting time budgeted was completely used, was left to staff to complete it. Staff has many obligations, and we think that this needs more work, and we suggest that the council, and we would like you to recommend to the council that it get more work. I would entertain any questions about the comments. There are written copies here as well. There's one thing that I think I did not put into the comments. I know I didn't put it into the comments, and I don't think it's in the plan. I think Phil will correct me if I'm incorrect, but since 2022, Bike Fitchburg has been promoting a plan that they call the Fitchburg Greenway proposal. which is to take our nearly 50 miles of multi-use path. It's principally in our newer networks, but also along reconstructed urban ways like Lacey and Fish Hatchery and South Sayin, and name them and designate them and treat them like the transportation system that they are. Everyone in Fitchburg knows that there's a bike path right near their house, but very few people know the extent of the system and all the places that you can safely walk and bike away from traffic. And this is very important for our Healthy Neighborhood Initiative areas. Many of the residents of those areas do not have access to a personal vehicle. Many of them are focused in their daily activities to the north in the city of Madison where transit goes. A story I have told many times is that my wife and a friend were doing a Get Out the Vote campaign for a November election in the Leopold neighborhood, and they said, you know, you can vote now. Early voting has started. You can go down to City Hall whenever it's open and vote. And the person said, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I want to go down to Martin Luther King Boulevard when I live in Fitchburg? And they did not realize that we had our own city hall, much less library and senior center. Many residents of the Leopold neighborhood have never been south of McKee Road. And yet the Fish Hatchery Greenway, as we call it, is 4.2 miles from the Beltline Frontage Road to Wayland Road. It passes 3 clinics, a grocery store, and several ethnic grocers, 4 banks, our dog park, our Veterans Memorial. So we've been asking Fitchburg to pass a resolution to designate this so we can start fundraising for signage and do marketing. We have, as part of our plan for the system, proposed multi-use paths through some of our H&I areas that are not well served. So we know that the city plan has the what we call the Southdale Greenway that connects north to from the Capital City Trail to Southdale's residential areas. And we have just submitted a grant application for what we call the Leopold Greenway, which runs along Traceway to the Cannonball Trail. But we have additional plans, such as extending the path that ends with a path into the city of Madison along Fitch-Rona Road, south of the Quarry Ridge Senior Living Center. We want that extended up the west side of Fitch-Rona Road all the way to Anton Drive, and along Anton Drive all the way to the Capital City Trail connector that comes across the Williamsburg Way Bridge. And that would serve a huge number of folks in that challenge Jamestown H&I area. So that's just another example. Fortunately, the Belmar Allied neighborhood is fairly well served by trails. But that should be an explicit proposal. Like Fitchburg has had throughout its history, 10-year history, a focus on equity and making sure that we try to get infrastructure and programming into neighborhoods that are our oldest neighborhoods that don't have parks and don't have paths and wonderful sidewalks and things like that. So we urge you to push your mission to get those kinds of things moved along. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
I think, Sarah, I just want to look at the formality of like our system and process Can we have those questions right now? Do we want to open it up?
Yeah, so you can ask questions right now, or if you want to wait until Phil goes over a little bit of the plan and then circle back.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm happy to stay and answer questions later if you would prefer to hear Phil's staff report.
Okay, let's wait.
That'd be great.
Great, thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
So moving on to our agenda items, number 4A, Resolution R174-25, approval of the City of Fitchburg Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan for 2025 update. And we have city staff Phil Group, is that correct pronunciation, for presentation. Hi, Phil.
Hi, thanks for having me. Just to check with Sarah, do we need a motion and second for the resolution before I give comments, or would you like me to do that first?
Yes, thank you. So you have to really take a motion before he starts talking about it. So if you want to
Thank you, Phil. Do we have a motion to move forward with the next agenda item? Motion. A second. And any opposed? If not, that moves forward. Thank you. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks. Before I get started, I'm not seeing any video of your room. Do you have video of me right now?
We do.
Okay, in that case, I apologize for my shirt. It's a little bit brighter than I anticipated on the screen when I woke up this morning. Also good to know that if I don't have any slides prepared, but I certainly have some visuals that I could share if needed. I was just going to chat a little bit about kind of the history and process of this plan, and then and pause there, try to keep this relatively brief. So we have a bicycle and pedestrian plan for the city of Fitchburg. The most recent update, it was originally passed in 2008, I believe. The most recent update was in 2017. That plan called for an update after another 5 years, and of course we're now 8 years past that, so there has been some pushing to get a bicycle pedestrian plan update done for the past couple years. We finally in 2024 secured $25,000 from council to make that happen. Given just staff resources, the budget available, Steve did reference the limited budget for this plan update. The intention with this plan update was basically to take the 2017 plan, not do an entirely new planning effort, but kind of put a fresh coat of paint on it, and reflecting the fact that technology has changed. There's increased use of e-bikes. There's the bike share network now that's coming through Fitchburg. Fitchburg itself has changed, and the addition of new neighborhoods. There's a Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative, which as of 2019, I believe, did not exist. 2017. I joined the city in 2019. And then also the incorporation of former portions of the town of Madison are now part of Fitchburg, most notably Southdale, of course, but also some portions up near Fish Hatchery Road. So we kind of wanted to take that 2017 plan and just kind of bring it up into the year 2025, not doing a whole new effort, but at least making sure that it was updated for the kind of the current state of where we are as a city, updating maps and the like. So we brought in a consultant, MSA Professional Services, to work on that with us. They started back in December. We had several meetings with the Bike Committee, which is now the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission. Had a working group that consisted of myself, a couple other staffers, the Bike Pedestrian Commission, and also Steve and another member of Bike Fitchburg. Went through a working session in March, and then kind of an extended draft and final revision stage. One, because there was a little bit more feedback, I think, than MSA had anticipated. So there were a lot of revisions made to the text and some of the content from the 2017 plan. But also I spent about half of the summer on parental leave, so I wasn't able to dedicate as much of my own time to this as I had anticipated when we thought we might be done in April. So we have this updated plan. We did incorporate a number of new elements that were not that didn't exist in 2017. Certainly would be happy to speak to any of those. I know that back in January, I provided Sarah with a copy of the 2017 plan to share with the Equity Committee at that point. We did get some feedback from Emmanuel Munoz, who was part of the group at that time. I'm not sure if he's on the Equity Commission now, but was able to incorporate some of that as well, which is really nice to see some of his suggestions and be able to think about how to factor those into the plan's update.
Phil, do you mind?
I kind of want to just stop there.
Oh, thank you, Phil. Just my initial question is, can you maybe highlight some of the suggestions that came from Emmanuel and how those were incorporated into the plan?
Sure. So I got about a page and a half email from Emmanuel, and there were several things that he had mentioned that were already in the plan. So he proposed adding V-cycle units in neighborhoods north of McKee Road. When he made that suggestion, I think the number was a little bit lower. It was maybe 5 or 6, but we currently have 8 stations that are north of McKee Road, including some that we very specifically targeted in portions of Fitchburg that were covered by the Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. So that includes the Boys and Girls Club on Genuine Drive. It includes the McKenzie Center, Hugel Jamestown Park, and Southdale neighborhood up near JD's Taste of Chicago and Finca Coffee. He proposed some Spanish signage and more bilingual signage. We did have that reflected in the plan already, but we strengthened the language on that as a result. He mentioned a partnership with the Free Bikes for Kids NGO. We actually did have that in the plan already. What wasn't in there yet was with some of the proposed bike and pedestrian events. He recommended monthly rides with mayor or city council and other city personalities. So we included that into proposed events for the city. There were several things that weren't necessarily in the plan. And I wasn't confident on whether the plan was the place to consider them, but I want to keep these in my back pocket and have already started talking to other staff about some of these ideas, some of the feasibility. One of the really interesting ones that I was actually hoping he would be a part of the group and be on this call, because he mentioned feedback loops along the bike trails via QR codes on signage, and it's just an interesting concept I hadn't heard before and wanted to pick his brain on that a bit more. So I may have to follow up separately with Emmanuel on that. He included a proposal for including time between popular destinations on mapping, and I think that doing that in some of our online mapping is a really good idea. Really have the ability to add that into the maps in the plan, but certainly with online mapping, it's something we'd be interested in looking at going forward. So some of the stronger suggestions he had in his email that we looked at.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I just have one question, and it's probably for both of you. So when I read through the report, the one thing I was curious about is you talked a bit about the community engagement that has happened in this process and who's been involved. And I was just curious if there was community engagement with folks in the different neighborhoods, and if that was disaggregated anywhere, so you'd be able to say, like, this neighborhood is asking for more of blank, or if that didn't happen in this process because it was really more of that update rather than, starting from scratch. And the reason I said it might be for both of you is because you would kind of mention some of those neighborhoods, and I was curious if the feedback was coming like from the people who live in the neighborhoods, if those conversations have happened, and yeah, so just curious about where that is.
So I would say yes and no. As you mentioned, we didn't have a specific engagement effort as part of this plan, given the timeline and budget. What did get incorporated with things like, what I mentioned, the B-cycle stations, we had reached out to community organizations in some of those neighborhoods and spoke with them about interest in B-cycle, and that led into other conversations about biking in the neighborhoods as well. Certainly just from speaking with council members who represent the various neighborhoods around Fitchburg, we've gotten a lot of feedback about biking in Fitchburg as a whole. Joe Maldonado has been a really strong voice on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission for expanding bike access and equity. So in a little bit of a kind of an informal sort of ongoing sense, there were considerations incorporated, but there was not a specific engagement effort that was part of this plan, no.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
So just to follow up on her question, Phil, so you're saying, so actually you spoke to organizations that are in the healthy neighborhoods, but you never spoke with residents of those
Correct.
in those districts, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, as part of this planning effort, we did not have any conversations.
So the feedback that you've received have come from folks that work for the various nonprofit organizations, et cetera, and Alders, but we don't really know what the residents really want in terms of bikes. And then for Phil, you made a comment about over on the Allied Drive area, I believe that you were saying you were surprised that someone hadn't gone south and didn't know that there was a library and et cetera, et cetera. I think that is larger than a bicycle issue for the city. That's a different situation versus them not knowing that there's trails. That's a big deal about not knowing that south like that there's not that there is a library out there or a senior center out there or the city hall. So I just in response to your comment about that, I just wanted to share that back. I just think we got it's a larger issue than bicycling in a path.
Agree and appreciate you calling that out. That was Steve that mentioned that, but
yes,
yeah,
Steve. Yes, I'm sorry, Steve.
No, I appreciate that comment and totally agree with you. I've had a lot of conversations about things along those lines, just communication in general, and yeah, far beyond the scope of this plan. You know that there are kind of limited bus routes going to Civic Campus, and I know that's a topic of awareness, but again, beyond the scope of this plan. But well, yeah. Thank you.
Is there any other questions?
So yeah, I do have another question. You said you were looking for us to ask for more. Is that more time to focus on this, Steve, or more funding? What exactly were you looking for us to ask for?
We believe that more effort is needed. That will require more time. It generally requires also more funding. We had offered to provide some legwork in the copy editing and planning parts of the plan preparation. We were asked, we were told we would not be able to do that because they could not let the source documents be handled by, a public advocacy group as opposed to a contractor. So at the Bike and Ped Commission meeting on this topic, I offered Bike Fitchburg as a contractor to do more work on the plan, and we would cut the city a sweet deal on the cost. But we have worked for People for Bikes doing infrastructure mapping nationally. We have expertise. Our first bike and ped plan was done by a sole practitioner who lived in Fitchburg back in 2008. So I think that's feasible. One of the things that I asked for to be updated in the draft is that Bike Fitchburg provided many of the photos that you see in the draft. And they were all provided with captions, but none of the captions made it in to the plan. And so a person who is not deeply aware of all the history of biking in Fitchburg can't even tell whether they're stock photos or whether they were taken in Fitchburg. And there are no photo credits. So that would be a global change that needs to be done. There's quite a bit of work that could be done with the maps. I think that it was very confusing the way, for example, priority intersections and critical intersections were mapped on both the bike and the ped plan map, but it was never made clear why the 2017 priority intersections were put on the map. Are they still priority intersections? Then just list the current priority intersections. I asked in my comments whether they were what are they called? Critical and primary. There were two different words. I asked whether one was a subset of the other, or whether they were disjoint sets, because all the marked intersections were either one or the other, never both. So there's a lot of work there. You know, the maps have missing roads, important roads, like the extension of Commerce Park Drive to Lacey Road are missing. The north end of Muchler Road is missing from the maps. Things like that. So we think that, you know, another 6 months and some heavy work on it would dramatically improve the plan, and that would benefit the guidance that the city needs to continue to work on bicycle and pedestrian matters for the coming 5 or more years.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask you how much time were you anticipating for that? And you said that 6 months, I believe that's what you said, correct?
I think that would be a good amount of time. I mean, you could have it. Clearly, all of us would like to do this work in the winter.
Yeah.
Because we'd rather be riding our bikes in the summer. But you know, we would want to get it done this year because we feel like we're on a tight schedule to renew our bicycle-friendly community application, which will be due in June of '27. And that work has to start soon. It requires a dramatic inventory of all our roadways and paths and sidewalks and so on.
Oh, okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you.
So just to add to that, sorry, I know from speaking to the mayor that she is eager to get this passed. I certainly can't speak for council. I don't know what their appetite would be for adding budget and time. What I can add for context is that the city does not have a bike-specific staffer. So we do have a transportation engineer, Ross Kaler, who does a great job with incorporating bike and pedestrian concerns into transportation planning. As the sustainability specialist, kind of bike programming and staffing the Bike Ped Commission falls under my umbrella, but a little bit of an awkward fit just as I'm not a bike coordinator. I'm more broadly a sustainability specialist. So I don't know, what I proposed as kind of a halfway point between that level of work and what's here right now is we know that there are some technical and some critical corrections that need to be made that could be reasonably done by staff within a month or two. So just an amendment that would essentially add one whereas clause to the resolution that would permit staff to make those technical and critical changes to the plan after its approval, so that when it's approved by council, that wouldn't necessarily finalize the plan as written, but it would allow us to do things like add some of those credits in there that I know, looking back through some emails, Steve had requested and didn't get added in there. So some things that we already kind of know need to be fixed, we would be able to do that after council passes it. It would be a little bit softer than doing kind of a full revamp of the plan.
I just have a quick clarifying question as far as the budget. So that $25,000, that's for the fiscal year and for the plan itself? Or I guess what does that? That was for the. Maybe I missed that part.
Yeah, it was $25,000 to contract with a consultant to revise the plan, and it was budgeted for the year 2025. It in theory could be carried over. As Steve mentioned, the contractor handed the plan back to us to make final changes. Before that, they informed me they were already 40% over the budget internally. So it wasn't a time and labor budget. It was a deliverables budget, but they had stretched thin enough with kind of additional revision cycles that they wanted to hand it back off to us to do the final edits.
And then for just timing wise, if this passes through our committee, this will go to the Transportation and Transit Commission on January 8th. And then after that, we'll go to council. We could, if there was a proposal to adopt as is, or we could move to adopt with the added language that Phil suggested. So those are kind of our options ahead of us. Otherwise, we can also, if there's additional options or ideas that you all have in regards to language to move it forward, you can bring those to the table as well. Thank you, Steve.
So, just so I'm understanding again
Sure.
as well. So like for the QR codes, for example, that's not necessarily explicitly called out in here, but there is mention of, updating maps and things like that. Is that something that needs to be explicitly lined out in this plan for it to pass?
I think for the resolution itself, just the added language that Phil outlined would be enough to do some of that internal work. That it's not necessarily a finalized plan, but it's a plan in progress, working plan.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my understanding. Is that correct, Phil?
And that's correct. And with something specific like that, there would be kind of an internal staff discussion about if something as specific as that would make sense to put into the plan, or if it's just something that we understand as a tool that we could use. Because understandably, you can't possibly list every possible map treatment that would be beneficial, and so determining which ones get called out specifically in the plan versus which we just know we're hanging on to as this would be really good to include in implementation. I don't know that would necessarily be included in the text. I'm just, that's one that I'm referencing. We definitely are aware of that and want to talk about it, incorporating it.
Okay.
I have an additional question. I'm sorry, go ahead, Janice.
Okay, in relation to what we're talking about, the QR code, for example, we've got a lot of different residents across Fitchburg, and not everybody uses QR codes. And you guys have referred to the healthy neighborhoods several times. In many of those healthy neighborhoods, folks will not use QR codes. So, my question is, are we really taking a look at the residents and the diversity of the residents in Fitchburg, or are we really focusing on just that group of people that have been the bike riders in the past, or are we trying to draw in different folks and using different techniques? I don't know, just a question.
Yeah.
I think if we were going to incorporate new treatments like that, community conversations would be helpful. To understand if they'd be valuable. We don't want to, we don't want to put the time and money into doing something like that if it turns out, you're putting in a place where it's not going to be used.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just bringing that for us to think about, because if we're trying to put stuff in place where it can reach out to a variety of people, then we've got to realize that we have quite a diverse population and residents here in Fitchburg. It's not the same Fitchburg that it used to be back in 17 or 18 or what have you. That's all I'm saying.
Just two quick things. Can you tell me when this plan would be kind of running through? Like, when would be the next time that it would potentially be reviewed?
Sure. So what we put in the plan, I believe, for renewal was a 10-year renewal cycle.
Okay.
As it turns out, 5 years is what was in the previous plan, and that's pretty aggressive for city plans, just given resources and how many plans we do have that require implementation and update. So we put a 10-year timeline in this, which would mean around 2035 or 36 it would be reviewed. It certainly could happen earlier, but that wouldn't be called for explicitly in the plan.
I guess the other just thing I wanted to say is just an appreciation. Like, I realized like a huge amount of work went into this, and one of the things I really liked about it was when you pulled out certain places where there were going to be pilot programs. And when I think about things like QR codes, like I think that idea of experimenting for some amount of time and then coming back and seeing who used them and how they worked, I just appreciated that was called out in the plan as well. So I just wanted to mention that.
So one way we could do this is we could make, here's a question maybe for you, maybe this is a question versus a proposal. Phil, if we put that language in, could that open for some for us to give some dialogue or some feedback to you in regards to some of the things that we brought up today as suggestions, not necessarily as actions, but here's kind of our thought, kind of more deeply looking at the plan itself. And if there are opportunities for the city under this plan to consider those, would the added language that you proposed to open it up for as a working plan, could that feasibly work out that way, that we could give you suggestions from our perspective, whether it's deeper engagement with specific communities, et cetera?
Sure, kind of a two-part answer. I think the language that I would be proposing would not necessarily, it wouldn't necessarily incorporate that, because it would really be just about technical corrections and making sure that the plan didn't have anything that was inaccurate or you know, egregiously missing. Like we wouldn't want to have any technical errors in there. In terms of those ongoing discussions, I think that certainly there could be value in ongoing communications between the Equity Committee and the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission. You know, certainly within my role as a sustainability specialist, you know, one of the three legs of the sustainability stool, it's environment and economy and equity. And so in anything that I'm working on in my role, I want to make sure that is a consideration. And so ongoing conversations I would very much be interested in having, even if it's not necessarily fitting within the scope of updating this plan itself. And kind of tied to that, calling back to the last comment just about specific treatments being in this plan or not over the next 10 years and kind of pilot programs. I will call out something that I did when we just did the sustainability plan over an 18-month period, passed that in April of this year, which was the other reason I didn't have quite as much time to spend on this myself as I thought I might, as I was kind of overlapping two plans simultaneously. In the sustainability plan, we had 42 kind of metrics that we were trying to target and 175 possible actions. And I think folks were really overwhelmed by those 175 actions. And I kept saying, don't worry about those. We've got the metrics that we want to hit. We got the target goals. Those actions are suggestions. Those are some of the things we could target. And just because it's not in the plan doesn't mean we can't do it. Just because the QR codes aren't in the plan doesn't mean we're not going to pursue them. You know, some things that are in the bike and ped plan right now are not going to make it in the next 10 years. That's just kind of how these things go. So looking at the goals for the 2025 plan, you see these on page 6: expand options, strengthen connections, improve networks and intersections, engage stakeholders, ensure equity. Like those are that's kind of the driving spirit of this plan. And we do try to spell that out in detail within the next 97 pages of the plan. But I would say just because something isn't in the plan explicitly doesn't mean that it's not going to be considered. There are a lot of suggestions for how we can meet those 5 goals, but it's not necessarily all encompassing. Okay. And absolutely, we know that things are going to come up in the next couple of years through ongoing conversations that, even if it's not in these pages, if it helps us meet one of those 5 goals, we're going to try to pursue it if we can.
Okay. So, procedurally, can you guide me to the...
Can take a motion
okay.
to either approve or deny or table, but I think one of the recommendations you made was to approve the plan with the suggestions, the technical updates, allowing him the ability to update that after the fact.
Yeah, go ahead. Do I have a motion to one way or the other? Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan with the additional verbiage that Phil had mentioned. If we could get that verbiage, that would be helpful, but it's opening the plan for the technical pieces. But then, so that would be the motion. Is there a second? And we'll have an opportunity to vote. And if it doesn't pass, then we can take the next action.
What if I have one more question?
Yeah, you
can
can
do
do
that.
that.
Is that acceptable? Yeah. Okay. We're all new. Okay, so I was reviewing also the benchmarks and targets, and I just want to confirm before we vote. I think that would be a place where we could work together with the bicycle committee and try to figure out ways to get into those healthy neighborhood spaces and actually speak with residents and use some of those conversations to really work on what the benchmarks should be. Because I think that could be a place where, like, given, the budget and the timing and all that constraints, that's something we can certainly work for and with you all too, and try to figure out, what do we want to hit? This is what we could do now. Like, how is that working? What do you need? And keep going from there. So it's like iterative. Is that acceptable?
So it's a procedural question that I have in regards to Robert's rules and how the city works. So I don't think if we pass this, would there have to be a change, Sarah, in regards to the proposal that I put on the table?
Well, I think hearing from Phil, it sounds like he is going to, what he's hoping is that, there's a approval to approve this plan, but with him being able to add some of the technical information that's missing or any other things that are missing, if we want to work with him on metrics and all of that, that may be something outside of the bicycle pedestrian plan. We can work with a sustainability specialist. He can come to our meetings and we can look at other metrics. But as for him, for us to be able to incorporate our metric recommendations and for him to add that into the plan right now, I don't know that is what we would be able to do.
Yeah, because it says could include like the metrics
But
list. So.
Yeah, because it's difficult to approve if there's still questions or stronger suggestions and looking for a little bit more information in order. It's hard to approve, at least from my standpoint. It's hard for me to approve it if there's some things that's just not there, or there's still questions. So that's all.
I think, again, procedurally, public comment, did you want to add something, Steve?
I just wanted to point out that the Bicycle and Ped Commission tabled this.
Okay.
But before they tabled, and they're going to see it again in January, but before they did, they expressed support for the comments that were included in your packet. And I just wondered if you had any reaction to those.
Go ahead, Sarah.
And we can take comment, and then we don't necessarily have to answer that. I know that you just passed this out, so no one on the team.
It was
has
in
had
the
a
packet
chance.
as well.
It was in the packet, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, I saw.
Why don't we, since the proposal was put out on the table, we'll take a vote. If it doesn't pass, then we can further have a discussion. If there's another proposal, and part of that, if it doesn't pass, we can propose tabling it and or pass as is. So there's several ways we can go about this. So I just want to remind you in regards to the procedural process. So I'll look for a second in regards to the proposal I made in regards with Phil's addition. Is there a second? If there's no second, then it will not come up for a vote. So, is there another proposal to move forward? Do we want to table it?
I propose that we table this and have further discussion amongst the Equity Commission.
Is there a second?
I think I second that. I second that.
Okay. And so then we can do a roll call vote or just do an A or nay. Why don't we do an A or nay? And if there's anyone opposed to that, then that'll be obvious. So all in favor, say aye.
Table.
Aye.
Yeah, okay. Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are tabling this plan for further discussion. And looking for Sarah for guidance, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
So Phil, can we ask you, what might that look like? Is this something where you could come to one of our next meetings in 2026 and we can share with you some of our suggestions and like the metrics you recommended, Jessica? What are your thoughts, Phil?
So it kind of depends. I don't know exactly what will happen with transportation and transit on January 8th. I don't know what will happen with the council vote on January 13th. So if council sees that Bike and Ped and Equity both tabled it, if TTC does the same, perhaps council will table it. Perhaps they'll say we want to pass this anyway. And if they do, certainly we can continue ongoing discussions. But if council does pass this as written or with an amendment to make technical corrections, then the plan will still be finalized at that point.
Sure.
I think either way, ongoing conversations would be valuable, but I can't really commit to what future conversations may result in, just not knowing how council is going to act.
Okay. Well, thank you, Phil, and thank you, Steve. And we do look forward to working with you further and more deeply, especially around the community engagement side.
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks. It's nice to meet y'all. Sarah will keep in communications on this and see what happens going forward.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Hope y'all have a happy holiday. I'll see you next year.
Yeah, same to you guys.
So, moving on to the next agenda item, we wanted to have this is item agenda 4. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve.
Item agenda 4B, timing of reviewing city plans, like we just reviewed. And so, can I have a motion? We don't need a motion since it's not a.
Yeah, you're not going to vote on it.
We're not voting on it, so this is just announcing that. So I think as we kind of felt in this conversation, what does the timeline look like in regards to large plans like this to review and add our comment as a committee? And this is really just a discussion, and it doesn't mean we're going to have any action, but rather what makes sense for us, and we can make suggestions to Sarah and the governing body in regards to like how we receive plans and big things like that. So I'll just open up the floor for discussion.
Okay, let me ask a question first. You said we make suggestions to Sarah, so then what? Where does that go, Sarah, after that?
Yeah, so I think the first step is finding out what city plans are out there, what's coming down the pipeline, and then we can get a better idea of the timeline. And so if the Community Equity Advisory Committee says we want to view plans 6 months before it's in a final stage, it gives you more time to have people come in at the beginning and present it, and how they're doing community outreach, and maybe they can even ask us for input on how we do community outreach. So just that's an example. So I can try to get a listing of the different city plans out there, and then I would bring that back to the committee, and then we can schedule those meetings with the various staff and have more interaction and be able to be part of this, where today we're seeing a plan in its most final form.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which makes I'm glad we're having this conversation, because it makes it difficult to be able to finalize them. And we dealt with that with the strategic plan when we got it kind of towards the end, and it was hard for us to really get strong, valuable input. So, yeah, from my perspective, it would be nice to know when the plans are just starting, what's coming down the pipeline, and then do some incremental, planning in terms of inviting people in, so we know as it's going along, at least from my perspective, as it's moving forward, we can make some informed decisions and give some feedback instead of, trying to have one final meeting and give a ton of feedback on something. So I would love to know more about when plans are put in place, what's coming down the pipeline.
We might want to come up with maybe a minimal amount of time, like no shorter than this amount of time, and maybe an ideal time. But I guess some plans are going to be different depending on that. But just kind of some perspective on prior work that I've done at the City of Seattle. When we get plans and they're pretty fully baked, it's harder to really change them once they're that far down the line.
Yeah.
And
In particular, when they're over budget, in addition, which stinks.
And so the earlier that we can get in front of that and to really kind of place some guidance early on with city staff around what does engagement look like, I think that in the long run as well, it's a cost savings, and it's a less liability in regards to if plans are potentially way off meeting community need. There isn't a need to go back and change those plans if we do that work earlier on.
Right,
So
exactly.
there's a benefit to doing that work, I guess, the right way the first time, right? And so we can provide that guidance, I think. So do we have a timeline? Is there a minimum, or is it dependent on the scope of the plan, I guess, right?
I think it's depending on the scope. And for me, I think would be most valuable, yes, Sarah, when you can come and give us what, the pipeline, what's in the pipeline right now, and for us to get an idea of what does that really mean. Because I think it's hard for us to come up with a timeline right now when we have no idea, because all those plans are so very different.
Yeah, is it in like the request for proposal stage even? Like it would be nice to be able to outline like we are looking for X, Y, Z, and this type of involvement kind of thing. So, but it's, is that for every plan? I don't know that is reasonable either. So yeah, it would be great to have that pipeline.
One thing we might want to consider too is I know that the city of Fitchburg does have a GARE membership, and GARE might have some guidelines around municipal planning processes with an equity lens. So I think maybe at a later date we could see what type of resources are available. You and I could probably look at that, and if there's something a tool or something we can bring to the table to share, maybe that's something we can do.
They do have a tool, and it's like enormous. So like to do it, it's like a year. So I think it's awesome. Like I think we should definitely look at it. But in my experience using the tool, it's like we probably don't want to use that for every plan. There will be some plans.
Exactly. Because everything's so different. Yeah.
The racial equity toolkit it's quite large. It's identifying stakeholders. It's that engagement.
It's very
identifying
thorough.
budget. It's that's what we use in the city of Seattle.
Yeah.
So just I guess the action item would be just looking at the next year or two, maybe,
Absolutely.
and seeing what big plans are coming down the line. And
I'm happy to do that. I can find out and bring that to one of our next meetings.
great.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Any further discussion? I think.
I just have one question, just mostly about like how we work as a group. Like, do we see ourselves as a group that if there's a plan, like so for example with this plan, is one of our jobs to like have a listening session with people in Leopold who maybe are not the people who are going to like the bike ped meetings, and you know what I mean? Like, is that part of our role to do some of the outreach and the listening?
That's a question that I have as well.
So we can, this meeting, this part of our meeting and group is pretty formalized and is kind of dictated by Robert's rules, but we can suggest having committee meetings that are working groups, and that could be part of that engagement, or we can have suggestions that come out of those committee meetings for city staff on how to do that work. But this meeting is pretty procedural based. And I would say one other thing too, the ad hoc committee, we had a lot of discussions and like thinking about those strategies of engagement. And so some of our prior work did incorporate some of those ideas, but I think this meeting is primarily reserved for hearing from the public and taking action, or having shorter discussion within the time frame that we have. And we can suggest coming out of, one of the actions could be a committee formation, and then working with city staff more deeply on something like a community engagement. So.
Or even just like listening to the staff and realizing, oh, you haven't done any engagement in this neighborhood or this neighborhood, or you should change how you're doing it, and giving that to them, and then letting them know, and then they can run with it. So the staff will be able to take your input and feedback.
So we're more advising the
Yes,
staff, and then
advisory
they would
committee.
be the ones who would be implementing.
Because all of you have full-time jobs too, and are busy, so we wouldn't want to put too much on you, but the staff that
but your question also was, do we have the ability to have some listening sessions? Is that was part of, at least that's what I heard out of some of your questions. Which is a difference in hearing having the staff do it, or we participate and listen in, because I think for what we're doing in terms of equity, it's critical that they reach out. Someone reaches out and talks to the residents.
Right.
Instead of talking like with the bicycle thing, he said, "Well, we talked with some of the organizations." Well, okay, but that's not finding out what the residents really want, what they need. So, yeah, I mean, that's her question is a good question, and I think that's something we have to really think about.
And also, as a member, I think we're representative of the city of Fitchburg and our engagement of community as well. So, we're residents and we're not city staff.
Yeah.
So I would encourage you, if you want to do that engagement on your own. The only thing that I would dictate is that if there's a quorum, we have to be aware of quorum. So if there's 4 people, then that's a public meeting.
Okay.
And so just be aware of that.
I did read that in the rules. Thank you.
So any further discussion on this? Have we given, Sarah, have you gotten enough information?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So I'll propose moving on to our last agenda item, 4C, DEI cultural observances for the 2026 calendar. And Sarah did give a list of what we've observed in the past. And let's see.
Yeah, in the packet is a listing of some calendar of events that internally the city staff recognize, and kind of some things that we do. So African American History Month, we currently highlight local Black businesses, books to read, local leaders, and we send out information to all staff. Then in March, we do Women's History Month, and we often highlight women in government careers. We do Pride Month in June, where we do hang the Pride flag out, and we have some words. We have sometimes we have potlucks, so it kind of changes every year what we do. Juneteenth, at one point we had the senior center had a big event. They had food carts out there. We had a voucher we gave to all employees along with Juneteenth informational materials. We had the raising of the Juneteenth flag. And then National Hispanic Heritage Month for the Dia de los Muertos, we had a ofrenda, and employees were invited to bring a picture of a loved one that had passed away, and then we had a potluck following that, and that was in City Hall here. And then Veterans Day, we have a really big event as well. We try to acknowledge some of our veteran employees. And then lastly, Native American Heritage Month in November. And we have a glass little window here in City Hall, and we have one of our employees, Sarah Moss-Meyer. She manages all of these months, and she'll put up informational materials in there as people are walking in, they can learn more. So you'll see there's a winter celebrations one where it talks about Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and other winter celebrations. So this is what we do currently, and so. Yeah, I just wanted to share. You asked me to share that. So.
Yeah, it was more for.
Can I add to that though, you guys? Sarah, I think there's some stuff that was missing up there. If you recall, the senior center started many of those things over there. For example, Black History Month, there's always a huge celebration where you bring in Black authors, a variety of things. There is Juneteenth Day that's big at the senior center. Over 100 seniors that they have a big event over there. So I think there's some things that's missing there. I think some of the stuff that you just referred to is more so for staff over at City Hall. But we can't forget the fact that Senior Center has been one of the catalysts for some of the things that's been going on over at the city as a whole. So to include some of those things and that so that everybody knows about that as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes. The Senior Center has been leading a lot of these initiatives and does a great job of bringing in a lot of people from the community and inviting employees over too when they have these events. So it's been wonderful.
So this is more just FYI for our information, and if there's further discussion, if we have additional things we want to highlight as we continue to form and think about how we observe different holidays and different significant events. One question that I did have, Sarah, was has the city made a determination if the flags will be raised again? And I do see just from this list, it says for Pride Month specifically, if we can't hang outside on the flagpole. So just a question on that.
So I checked with our city administrator, and we can still hang a pride flag out, and Juneteenth flag. So there's some guidelines that the mayor has on flags. So there's certain flags that go up at certain times of the year. So like the Juneteenth flag, you'll see up from June 6th to June 19th. The pride flag, the whole month of June. So the mayor has that flexibility to decide what flags are we're going to raise. So.
And I think that question came up because the state level on state buildings has changed, and that has not changed for municipal government. So the city of Verona, for instance, will continue raising pride flag, and that was a bit of an issue last year. So.
One thing I'm maybe noticing for Asian, Filipino, right? Or even Chinese New Year or something. I forget what month it is though.
So
my internet doesn't work.
I think if there's additions that we would like to see, or we could even have our own list as a committee that we'd like to see. So this was something to work from. And also, since this is a public meeting, if other folks from the public have additional things that they'd like to potentially see on how we recognize things, we'd love to hear from the committee as well.
Absolutely.
I think the only thing that comes up for me is not so much an addition, is just thinking about, I think it's just because it's fresh on my mind from those presentations, but thinking about like if we are doing any kind of celebration, like are there ways to either invite people from other parts of Fitchburg to come here to like be able to be in the library and the, in the space, or bringing events out to neighborhoods where people are maybe, feel closer to Madison than to Fitchburg. So nothing to be decided on that. Just putting that out there so I don't forget when it comes to actually have that conversation.
And that's a good point, though. That's a really good point. As for example, over at the senior center, we make a point of reaching out, even and bring people from Madison out to Fitchburg for them to see that things like events like that go on in Fitchburg, which in the past never had. And so things that,
And then the other thing we could do is, if on our own account would like to look at what other municipalities are recognizing, understand what other cities are doing, that's always helpful too. There is an official DEI calendar online that does a great job of here are all the specific dates like Diwali and other things as well. So I would encourage familiarizing yourself with that if you don't know that as well.
So, sir, for the things that go on with staff, is it your group of staff people, that the employee group that takes care of that, or what?
Yeah. So Fitchburg has a diversity, equity, inclusion, employee resource group. So they're members from a variety of different departments. We actually have two from the senior center. Susie and Katie are on the team. So that's their charge. Is we have a work plan, and in the work plan, we always have a calendar of events so that we can try to make sure we don't miss any of these important months or days. And so this is a collective effort of these reps from different departments.
That's great. You spoke of bringing them in, or representatives in. Are you still planning on doing that?
Yeah, we're hoping in January, but I just need to make sure that everyone's available. So trying to get a pulse on how many will be able to attend. So hoping for January, but if January doesn't end up being a month that works for everyone, I'll definitely let Christopher know. But for sure in 2026, hopefully early 2026, we can get the team here and you can meet them and ask questions.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So moving on, unless there's any other discussion, agenda item number 5, announcements. And my first question is, when is our next meeting, Sarah?
Yeah, so our next meeting is going to be January, and it will be, we always meet the 4th Wednesday of the month at 5:15, so January 28th at 5:15.
And again, the agenda will come out the Friday prior.
Yep, so we'll send a draft, probably the 20th or 21st, always the Tuesday or Wednesday before, and then if anyone wants to see any updates, then they can let us know, and then it'll be formally published on that Friday before.
And also, I would ask committee members to definitely reach out to Sarah or myself if you have agenda items that you'd like to see.
And then the list of the plans in the pipeline, is that something you'll
Yeah, I can bring that to January meeting.
bring it to?
Yep.
Okay.
Seems like a good time for that.
Yeah, great start.
I do want to recognize Hanukkah.
Can I ask?
Hanukkah.
Oh.
We celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas in our house, so we'll be lighting our second Hanukkah candle tonight. So, yeah.
Question, just a quick question. Sarah, do you think that you could send that list out before the January meeting so we could look at that
I will
before we get to the?
I will have to see. So right now I know a lot of people are taking off, and what my goal is to reach out to different department heads and try to get that list.
Oh, that's
so I
how you
probably
do it.
won't have it until early January, like maybe that second week in January, I would think, by the time
Okay.
everyone's back. So, but as soon
Okay,
as
so
I do
there's
have it, I'm happy to send it ahead of time. So.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be great. Okay, did you move on? Are we moving on to announcements, Chris?
Yes.
Did you say that?
We are there.
Okay. Well, speaking of holidays and things, the senior center is in February. It's obviously, it's Black History Month, and February 4th we're having representative from the Milton House Museum come, which is iconic structure here in Wisconsin, which had played a big role in the Underground Railroad, and so there's a presentation there. So as we talk about specific holidays and presentations and what have you. So that's February 4th. And then on February 18th, in representing Black History Month, there's a presentation on dance, movement, and music as it relates to Black history, and where the dance and movement originate from, et cetera, et cetera. So you all are welcome to attend, and that's a lunch and learn, and that's from noon until 1:30. The first Wednesday, which is the 4th, and then the third Wednesday, which is the 18th. So that is just an example of some of the things that we're doing over at the Senior Center, as well as representing, some of the different cultures and some of the different events and holidays that are coming down the pipe. So hope to see you guys there.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you.
Janice, I think it's taped too, right? So will FACTv record it for those
Yes.
that can't attend? Okay.
Yeah. Every lunch and learn, which is just for the new members here, every first and third Wednesday of each month, there is a presentation, whether it's health and wellness, civic kind of things. It's a variety of topics, but FACTv does a wonderful job of filming every presentation, and it's out there. So you can go back and take a look at everything. So, and as a matter of fact, in March, you can see Jeremy, because he's going to be coming and doing a presentation on FACTv. So yeah, I've got Jeremy coming. Yeah. So it's just an example of, while there's things that go on specifically at City Hall in that building, over at the Senior Center, there's some amazing things that's happening as well. So as a whole, the city is really doing some good things.
And I'll just also promote, if you have an idea or have a resource for Janice, Janice is always looking for good ideas for the future.
I'm always open, always open, always open.
All right, any other announcements? Great, if not, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second that motion.
And, okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you so much, and have a great holiday. We'll see you in January.
All right, you guys have a great holiday.
You too, thank you.
Janice.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
On to my next Zoom meeting at 6:30.